Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our latest batch of listener questions. Today we're asking when set pieces became a bad thing. We're exploring two-striker formations like proper 90s football men, and we're deciding which World Cup contenders have the best kits. Graham Ruthven, stand by. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today is Taylor Rocco. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. I tried really hard with that first question, and I'm a little concerned that my answer is ultimately going to be when Arsenal got good at them, and I'm not sure that's a great answer, but here we are.
I suspected we might lean that way. We'll dig into that very shortly, but not after we've said hello to the aforementioned Graham Ruthven. Hello, Graham.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. Yes, we're going to take it back to the 90s with chat about set pieces and long balls. And are you wearing an Oasis zippy as well today?
I am. Same one I was wearing earlier this week, Graham.
On Wednesday, yeah. That's coincidental, that. Yeah, so we're fully throwing it back on today's episode.
We are indeed. Good to hear it. And Joe Lowry, very excited about that, aren't you, Joe?
I'm so excited. Throwing it back. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is where you'll get our bonus.
Joe sounded like a cop just then. Like, yes, me too. I also am excited for the throwback. Don't catch me. I'm on to you,
guys
officer.
doing any crimes this weekend?
Right.
Yeah,
I was getting...
I joined.
The vibes I got was Pepper Brooks from Dodgeball. It's a bold strategy, card. Let's see if it pays off.
Wow.
Ouchtown population you, bro.
Very nice.
Yeah, he will not be able to see with those on.
Oh, boy. It's a Saturday morning. Here we go.
Didn't I read... You can't tell me if I read this or not, but wasn't Jason Bateman shooting Arrested Development and also who's doing that at night? It's kind of like Michael J. Fox doing Back to the Future, like simultaneously.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
His performance in Dodgeball is a little bit unhinged. And that's, I think that was what I got from Joe's interjection earlier.
Very good. Anyway.
That does make sense because like the first couple of seasons of Arrested Development, I think he's still meant to be the like common sense everyman regular one, and it takes a little bit of time, I think, for him to devolve into what he becomes. So I feel like maybe because he was the kind of buttoned up one on the show, he got to be the lunatic one in Dodgeball, and there are lots of lunatics in that movie, including Lance Armstrong.
Indeed. One more time, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is where you'll get our bonus content, including but not limited to bonus listener questions. Our man Richard Rolson has sent one on this week, which we're going to be tackling on the feed, about MLS and it covering itself with in-house editorial and what it means for this bold, brave future of AI doing that job now, it seems, instead. So Richard Rolson's question coming on the bonus feed. Bonus episodes, bonus video, and access to our Discord server as well. If you missed it, by the way, Joe did a lovely little video from Coachella. I did. The bit I enjoyed the most, Joe, was when you sort of looked around and put the camera around and said, "Isn't this beautiful?" while you were in the parking lot. I thought that was...
It was the parking lot for a polo club, though. So
it's a swanky parking lot. Maybe I was just overcome with how beautiful the weather was outside. That maybe didn't translate. Weather, I find, doesn't translate over video. Tactical error on my part. We'll come back stronger next year.
It was a great parking lot, though.
What's a Bougainvillea? It was. It's nice. You know.
Yeah, it's very good. Very good. Congrats. Good
Thanks.
stuff. Always enjoyable, your content, Joe. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. By the way, the TSS Scouting Network's in there. If you haven't checked it out, do so. You can be assigned a player or pick a player to scout for this season. We'll read out your reports here and on the bonus feed as well. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get to our first question. It's from Shreyas, who's dropped this one on our Discord. What are the rules teams in other countries are subject to with regards to player compensation and benefits, and how far down the football pyramid do these rules extend? I know the US is a unique case here, but is there a minimum salary for AFC Wimbledon or Sterling Albion that they're required to pay players that's different from the laws of the country? Are they also required to provide health insurance and retirement benefits to all players? Graham, you may have a bit more detail on this, but my understanding is that obviously there's different countries have different labour laws, but if you look at the UK, for example, I don't think there's any special rules for soccer in particular. You've got the national minimum wage, which everyone has to be paid. You have health insurance, I suppose, isn't a thing because you don't generally need that in Europe. But what did you find, Graham?
So I had to ask around for this because there wasn't a whole lot of information that I could find on the internet. And all those things that you say, Ryan, are correct. That is what I found when I asked a couple of people. I guess one distinction, if we're talking about Stirling Albion, which is mentioned in Shreyas' question, is Stirling Albion are a part-time team. So national minimum wage doesn't apply to Stirling Albion. So essentially, there's no minimum salary for my team, which means they can pay kids nothing, and they do. They'll get like a bonus for actually making an appearance, or they'll get a bonus for being in the matchday squad, which is more likely how they're actually making any money out of this. But yeah, they're not making a lot of money at all. In a lot of cases, it'll be below minimum wage for Stirling Albion, and players will be insured when they're registered with the National Association. Which will in turn then cover the club and the player if they get a bad injury and they have to have like surgery or anything like that. And I believe for clubs at a certain level, the National Association helps with paying some of that insurance. So Stirling Albion, being a part-time team, a small club, gets some association help. No health insurance after they retire, as you say, Ryan, because in the UK our health insurance is essentially the NHS through the taxes we pay. If, however, it is a playing-related injury that continued to cause problems in retirement, then the player union, so PFA Scotland and the PFA in England, they would help with that. And then finally, pensions were kind of the most complicated part, where I kind of had to read between the lines of what was the case between someone asked at Stirling Albion and then someone asked higher up the Scottish pyramid. Basically, it depends on what you're earning. So there is a pension threshold, and apparently it also interacts with what your full-time day job might be in the case of Stirling Albion, because, as I say, lots of those players are part-time at that level. So that one's a little bit harder to quantify, but I am told that the pension scheme through the PFA, even if you're a full-time player in Scotland playing at Championship or Scottish Premiership level, isn't very good. It's not as rewarding as a lot of workplace pensions are in private enterprise in the UK or in Scotland. So the gist I got here was, unless you are playing for Celtic or Rangers and making millions every year, being a professional and certainly being a part-time player in Scotland is not a particularly well-paid vocation. I'd imagine it's similar for a lot of the lower league players in England as well, although I'd imagine they'll get paid more.
Yeah. Taylor, how far did your research go here? Do you have the numbers for Outer Mongolia, for example?
I mean, yeah, you didn't? I thought that was part of the key research. I'm
I
going to leave
did.
that for
Just
Joe,
checking you
though,
did.
because he said specifically, I've got
Leave me Outer Mongolia
covered.
or else. I think
Yeah,
is
and then
what I
Graham, Inner Mongolia, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
It's
mean, the
basically
Sherpa
Scotland.
pension is actually it's pretty decent.
Sherpa pension.
Goes uphill
I mean,
quickly.
No, I went pretty basic with this one because employment law and taxation and pensions, my head starts to hurt really quickly. But yeah, I mean, the gist is you have to follow your national employment laws, usually relating to minimum wage, but there's also parental leave and holiday pay and the like. I think there are specific provisions around injuries as well, based on the country in which you are playing, where maybe certain countries do have some leeway with if you are injured, there is less of an obligation to pay, or there can be sort of pensions and the like. But generally speaking, even there's going to be a lot of protection for the worker, aka the player, because that's ultimately what it is. And then I think some nations definitely seem to be better, generally speaking, when it comes to if you are a player at a somewhat lower level, how well covered you are going to be by that pension later in life. La Liga seems to have a lot of protections and provisions in place, Spain in general, I should say, not just La Liga, about minimum salaries and pension commitments and when you can pull from them and how much you can pull from them. And it's very well regulated, it seems. But also I think there are probably loopholes in there that clubs can exploit. But generally speaking, I think it's employment law based on the nation in which you reside.
Mm. And the Spanish is so well organised there that most people get a suspended prison sentence for tax issues there.
Yeah, this is the thing that I was kind of ending on an awkward note on, is that also I think there's whole issues with how much bureaucracy is costing and insolvency at times and the like. But yeah, we don't need to get into that. We can just say that ultimately I think worker protections are stronger and better in Europe.
Yeah. Joe, did you find the numbers for Estonia? Just so I've got them here.
I have Estonia, Latvia. I had Latvia. Shoot, I can't find Estonia. I'll just have to speed past that. I mean, the TLDR here on the general rule here is that there is not a global standard. It depends on the domestic association or the players' union to go and negotiate all that stuff. And we're living in a CBA world right now with USL, and so there are. I think this is top of mind for a lot of folks. But I think you guys have summed it up very, very well. There are different cases in different countries. And Graham, I think you laid out the foundation well at the start. So I don't really have a whole lot else to add, other than as you go further and further down the pyramids, you're going to leave the professional game behind and start hitting the semi-pro game or the amateur game. And Graham, you talked about players getting a bonus or a little stipend or something like that. That's what you're looking at when you end up in the semi-pro or like amateur sorts of levels. I think I did a bit of research into Spain, and you have the fully professional top 2 leagues in Spain, and then you get to the third tier, and you hit some clubs that are having players on pro contracts, and then some that are not, at least not nearly as formalized. So it starts to blur the lower down you go, and depending on whether you're in a professional setup or something that is less or different than that, then your financial situation obviously is going to change.
Yeah.
I do wonder what like protections there are in place from the federations and the like, because I maybe cynical me doesn't believe that like giant organizations always do what they're supposed to do when it comes to like protecting the people that they are functioning on behalf of. But I wonder in those lower levels, like those guys aren't having agents, right? There's nobody, like maybe it's like an uncle who's a lawyer is like reviewing the contract, but there's no sort of standard in place. I'm assuming it's basically like, yeah, this is what we do, take it or leave it, and then it's up to the player to take it or leave it. But I wonder how many protections there are and how much coverage there is the lower down you go, and where it starts to become a little bit more cracked. Whereas over here, we have great protections in place. Like, did you break your leg? Well, you can go to the horse doctor. Otherwise, we got nothing for you.
Horse
Here's some
doctors should be
ibuprofen.
good at legs. They've got 4 of them. So.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
they usually have one solution when the leg is broken.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
City boy learns about horse doctor. Got it.
So I think on kind of not having agents, an agentless world, I think in the lower leagues in Scotland, the union, like the PFA Scotland, are very active. So the PFA will often sit with a player and negotiate their contract. And I think the protections, because like the SFA, and it must be the same for the FA in England as well, it's like a members' organisation. So the clubs sit on the board of the National Federation. So I don't think there's... I don't think the federation has a lot of wiggle room to like get out of paying for a player's like treatment. So, for example, Stirling Albion have just had a player who's missed the last 3 years. A guy called Sam Denham. I think he's had 3 different operations. And so when I was asking my person at Albion, they were saying like the union through insurance helped with all of that. And that's like a 23-year-old kid. We signed him when he was 20. He's not like anywhere close to being professional. So if they're given that level of protection to a player in the bottom tier, not even one of our better players, then I'd imagine it's pretty consistent up through the divisions.
What can you tell us, Graham, if you know what the full-time jobs are of Stirling Albion players? I always love to hear when England play like the Faroe Islands and you hear like it's the mailman in goal.
Yeah. So we've had such flux with our squad at the moment, I'm not entirely sure, but I'll tell you some of our like from a couple seasons ago. So Dale Carrick was a youth coach at Hearts, which is always what you want. Actually, our starting goalkeeper is a youth coach at Rangers. So if you can get a coach for a higher up, someone who's like fit and is in football on a daily basis, and then they play for you at the weekend, that's quite good. But we had a solar panels installer, Robert Thompson, who that was his day job. We had Ross McGeechy as a joiner or a carpenter. So yeah, we are that Faroese team that England comes up against every so often.
I don't know. I certainly don't know how it works over there, and that's really interesting. Over here, I know that like for kickers players who come here from abroad, it gets dicey because it's third division of professional soccer in the United States. You're not always being super well compensated, and oftentimes not for the entire 12 months out of the year, but you're on a visa that is very restricted to what you can do. And so I think it's basically like coaching and playing and working in soccer camps. But aside from that, it gets really hard to kind of have part-time employment if you are on a very specific visa allowing you to play soccer and not much else. So it's a little bit dicier over here, not surprisingly. And as always, is a good reminder to support your unions.
Graham, what do you say, Sam Denham? How's Will Blue Jean doing? Is he doing okay?
He's still in the treatment room, but the union's got him covered, so it's fine.
Good.
Very nice. I like that. I like that Shreyas noticed that the US is a unique case as well. And it is a very unique case when you look at sort of global sports as well, because obviously most US sports have a closed system with their own sort of salary rules. And I'm always quick to remind folk in my snotty way that it's basically the only instance of socialism that the US has in their sports systems, where the worst teams get the best players for next year, and there's rules like of sharing equity and stuff like that, which doesn't really happen in the rampant capitalism you see in Outer Mongolia and Estonia. So there you go. Shreyas, I hope you appreciate our answers to that question there. We take a quick break. When we come back, we ask, why have Arsenal ruined set pieces? Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our listener questions. Diego has been in touch with this one. That's how it's written on their Discord profile. With all the talk about Arsenal and the rest of the Premier League being so focused on set pieces and it being a detriment to the overall game, I'm wondering what you think about it. How were set pieces used in the past, and what changed that made them unenjoyable, if you agree with that perspective? Which I don't agree with, as a biased Arsenal fan says. Diego! Taylor, I think you kind of touched on the thread of this one, perhaps humorously, when we started the show, in that, is it just we don't like them because Arsenal are doing them rampantly at the moment?
Because we've all got a personal agenda against Arsenal that I'm not aware of.
Is it the manner in which they're deploying them, I suppose, right?
I think so. I think it's that. I'll get more into the Arsenal specifically of it all. But it is a really strange situation that we find ourselves in. Because not long ago, like, the inverse is true, and the hipster kind of prevailing data-driven opinion is set pieces, especially corners, are really inefficient. I think it's in The Numbers Game that this is really expounded, the book The Numbers Game, Why Everything You Know About Soccer is Wrong. I think that's the one where I think Roberto Martinez is at the time the Everton manager, and we all think he's going to be the next big thing, and he's kind of talking about why long corners don't work. And I think there's the Jose Mourinho quote about, like, only in England do you people cheer a thing that only works, like leads to a shot 8% of the time or whatever it is. So there's an idea that they are more of a crapshoot. It's more of just a random thing. You're crossing the ball into the box, but it feels like an opportunity, and you get numbers up. And at the same time, though, like, we always hear set pieces. Alexi Lalas drives that point home. It's the thing you can prepare for. It's the thing you can prepare to defend. So you shouldn't be conceding. Whether or not you agree with that, I think what it speaks to is that teams that can find a way to create something out of a low percentage opportunity are gaining an advantage. And so what I always enjoyed about it were teams that found ways to draw up either design set pieces that would qualify for, like, master set piece theater, or had just really interesting approaches to them. The most resounding one for me is always the Welsh tactical column that I think first appeared in one of the Euros a long time ago. But it was just them having like 5 and 6 guys lining up in a line, but every single one of them knew where they were supposed to sprint based on whichever hand or whichever gesture the taker was doing. And it gained this advantage because they were able to find pockets of space, or they were able to get people unmarked in areas that were really to their advantage. And so it felt like you can find little avenues to exploit, little ways to get better, little ways to create shots when you otherwise might not. And that was what I found interesting. What I think has happened more recently is I think there is an awareness that corners tend to be pretty loose, even if refs are watching them even more so, even if you have VAR and officials stopping play to call 2 players over to talk to them. Ultimately, I think they don't want to concede penalties for shirts being pulled and people being dragged back. And so I think things that would definitely be fouls in open play are not fouls when it comes to set pieces, specifically corners. And I kind of think Arsenal, through Mikel Arteta and whatever coaches they've brought in, were the first, or at least the one to most consistently, in my mind, this is where it gets into like much more opinion. I feel like we're the ones to be like, they're not going to call this. Let's see what we can get away with. And I think they're the ones who exploit that physicality the most and the most effectively. And I think that they have a combination of design set piece with let's get into scraps, let's crowd the box, let's flood this specific area so the keeper can't get off their line, or so the defenders are kind of flattened up against the line, and now we have somebody open. And I think it kind of invites challenge, and thus far officials aren't calling it. And so it feels like they are getting away with things at times. With that said, like this past weekend, when we talked about the set pieces that they take advantage of against Chelsea, they don't do anything wrong. There's no fouls. This doesn't really apply to that situation. But I think teams have started to recognize corners are just kind of a free-for-all now, where you can absolutely bear hug an opposition attacker, and it's maybe not going to be called, or if it is, it's going to be called the other way somehow. So it feels like an area that has become a little bit more Wild West, and in that Wild West, teams that are just aggressive and taking advantage of the loophole seem to be having a bit of joy.
How you seeing it, Joe?
I think Taylor's onto a lot of stuff there. Excuse me. I would start with the data side of things, and I think as data has become more prevalent in soccer, set pieces have become more of an area of focus for reasons that you said, Taylor, which is they're a thing that you can prepare for, and they're the one actual set moment where you can have a pre-scripted approach in this sport. Everything else is much more free-flowing than that. You can try to get into your patterns, but it's not going to be as rigid as set pieces are. So set pieces before, and probably before I mean 10 years ago, maybe less than that, just weren't thought about as much. The data rise then showed how valuable they could be, and people started thinking more analytically about the game, which is just an obvious thing to do. I mean, really, it was inevitable that we would get to this point. There's soccer's only opportunity to execute a real play, and clubs then started hiring set piece coaches because the data showed that it was worthwhile to spend more time training, even if players don't like it. Coaches got more creative with how they incentivized players to actually try and commit to working on set pieces in training. I talked with some Minnesota United folks last year, and there were days off incentives for set piece performance in games. And coaches are actively trying to think of prizes basically for their players to get them to work on this stuff because they know how important it is. And that comes from a more analytical approach to the game. I also think maybe part of this comes from players getting more physical, which I think has changed the style of soccer a little bit. And the soccer style in general is changing right now, a little bit away from this hyper free-flowing stuff. And Arne Slot kind of bemoaned that recently, and more towards, hey, let's be stodgy and aggressive and transitional. And that's the cycle that we're seeing now. And so all of a sudden you have more 6'3" giants who can jump 36 inches on the field anyway, that it works for your open play approach. You toss them in on set pieces too, and I think you're there. I think basically teams should do everything they can to take advantage of set pieces. And so I don't begrudge Diego and Arsenal whatsoever until the rules change. And Taylor, you talked a little bit about how referees allow this stuff to be patrolled or aren't patrolling some of these things. I would want my team to take advantage of every marginal gain that you can, right? So I don't begrudge Diego at all here. I think it's brutal to watch, and I don't, as a neutral, I'm not enjoying it whatsoever. But I think teams have been smart to take advantage of it in the way they have. I'm a little surprised that it took so long. I suppose soccer's data revolution has come quite late, and we're still kind of in the early stages of it, frankly. But this was always low-hanging fruit, and once people started thinking that numbers could make them money and they stopped laughing at the number people, then this is what happened.
Joe, like for people who are new to the sport or whatever and are maybe trying to like get their head around why we care about this, would the best American sports example be the tush push? That's what I think of in the context of this conversation.
It's really good.
It's a thing that feels like a loophole, that feels like it is at times breaking the rules, but if you start calling it, it gets really murky really, really quickly, and so until you change the rules, it's a thing that the Eagles can run 4 plays in a row and get a first down or get a touchdown. And people are really annoyed by it, and people are now, but instead of the rules being changed, it feels like everybody is now like, well, if they're going to do it, we'll do our variation of it, and that's what you get now is 22 players or 21 players inside the 6-yard box, because if they're doing it, why not we?
Well, and it's fascinating because teams are now starting to try to fight back against this. So NYCFC in Major League Soccer has started defending with fewer players in their box on defensive corner kicks. So they've started leaving, I think it's 6 players only in their box, not bringing everybody in -1. But they'll leave 6 players in their box and 4 players high. And the idea is, well, if you don't score, we're going to run at you the other way. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I think it probably isn't a good idea. But
did they score an open goal this weekend? Was that NYCFC who did that?
An open? Oh, what do you mean open goal? Like an open play?
Didn't their game finish with like them passing it into an open net because the other team was like desperately chasing one? I swear that was NYCFC.
I don't remember. I'm sure you're right about that. I really don't remember.
Maybe not. But I think that happened.
Maybe they're onto something then. But we're seeing teams try to strategize around it, right? I don't know if that's the solution or not. Like I said, I think it probably isn't. But this is the next phase where teams start to evolve to figure out, okay, how can we shift? Maybe the rules are going to evolve when it comes to things like long throw-ins and these things that take 87 years to get the game back going again. There are all sorts of viewing challenges that I think the rise of data has presented. But again, I don't begrudge these teams for doing it until the context around this all changes.
Graham, anything to add here?
I mean, I think I agree with pretty much everything that's been said so far. I think this is kind of just the way that tactical cycles work in soccer, because what we have here, you can trace what we're seeing this season all the way back to like the Pep Guardiola possession revolution, where teams become much heavier on the possession side of the game, and then the response to that is like, I guess, Klopp's Liverpool or Klopp's Dortmund becoming a lot like better in transition. And then the response to that is teams using sort of like 4 centre-backs, and all of a sudden full-backs disappeared, and you had Guardiola using centre-backs as full-backs, and you had Arteta doing that. And then in response to that, or not so much in response to that, an evolution of that, is managers like Arteta realising, all of a sudden we've got all this height in the team. How can we make better use of this height? Well, the most obvious way to do that is from set pieces. So I have faith that we will come out of this cycle again. There may also be some rules that are tweaked. I think that has to happen. I've seen some people suggesting like a little semicircle, like a 2-yard semicircle around the goalkeeper, like painted on the pitch, I mean. And when a set piece is taken, nobody's allowed to stand in that area besides the goalkeeper. I kind of feel like that would work, because one of the things that I think most people dislike is how crowded around the goalkeeper teams get and how farcical it is, where you have like the goalkeeper getting pushed into the back of the net. And then the other thing that needs to be clamped down on is just the amount of time that it takes for teams like Arsenal. Arsenal are worse than this. They're worse at this than any other team in the Premier League. They have wasted 2 hours of time in the Premier League this year, according to Opta, taking it's either corner kicks or set pieces in total. So that's another thing referees need to, be much come down harder on, is making sure that the flow of the game isn't impacted. But yeah, it's not an evolution that I am particularly fond of, while also accepting that if the rules allow it, then I can't really begrudge Arsenal or any other team taking advantage of it. They're better at it than anyone else.
Yeah, they are indeed. Diego, thank you very much for that question. We go now to Crimson Jayhawk, which according to Google is a Kansas college sports reference. As a Liverpool fan awaiting the return of Alexander Isak and wondering how he'll fit into a lineup with Hugo Ekitike, I've been thinking about the 2 striker systems and how uncommon they seem to be in modern soccer. Do you have any theories as to why 2 striker systems have become less favoured? Who are the most notable teams that still regularly play with 2 central strikers today? And what do their tactical setups look like? Joe Lowry, we come to you for this one. Is it as simple as it is in my head that all tactics are basically cyclical and we'll come back to 2 strikers being predominant in a few years?
Yep, I think 100% that is the way this sport works. That's the way a lot of things in life work. No, why did the 2-striker formation become less popular in the first place? Well, my thinking on this is that passing became all the rage, and not that other teams weren't passing and using the 4-3-3 setup, but obviously Guardiola at Barcelona influenced things quite a bit. I shouldn't say obvious. Maybe that's not obvious, but I do think that is what happened. And so the second striker was dropped for another midfielder. Why not, if you're trying to pass the ball, why not have as many passy players as you can? I think that's a really big part of it. I think teams also wanted more control over central midfield. Again, I think that's tied into the idea of becoming more controlled with possession. So then adding another third midfielder has value after the ball turns over as well. But really, I think the rise of Guardiola's possession-heavy system and Barcelona popularizing a lot of that stuff had widespread impacts. And everything takes a while to disseminate, right? So Barcelona are doing this, and then you get 8 years down the line and basically everybody's doing it. It doesn't happen overnight. But now what we're seeing is, like I said in the last question, defensive play and hitting in transition and on set pieces is more popular. So all of a sudden, when those things are making up a larger percentage of what you're trying to do on the field, it's more appealing to have another big lad or some sort of other goal-scoring presence who is maybe a little faster, a little more athletic, a little more goal dangerous on set pieces and in open play. Maybe it makes sense to have that player back in the team instead of another central midfielder, or maybe other positional profiles have shifted. But I think we're starting to see the 2-striker setup come back into popularity, at least a little bit. I think it always was still around deeper down the tables when teams are trying to literally counter, what the top tier clubs who were all trying to pass the ball were doing. But I think we are seeing this become more popular now, and even for the big clubs, it's starting to look a little more attractive. I mean, we've seen Pep play with 2 strikers a whole bunch this season, right? Like a huge chunk of the season he's done that. And that's not normal for him, right? So this is happening everywhere now. So we're shifting back into this. And the profiles of those players maybe are different now than they were back in the 90s when these things were really popular. I think there's certainly more nuance and more versatility, and players are just better now than they were straight up. I don't think we would have seen a Semenyo and Marmoush front two or players of that ilk playing as strikers in the 90s, right? I don't think either one, maybe Semenyo, probably not. I don't think Marmoush, any chance that he was going to be like at least a line-leading striker back in the 90s, given how the game was played. So things are changing, and they will continue to change, as Ryan said, but that is why I think the second striker went away, and that is why I think it has come back. Or at least is coming back, maybe.
Yeah. Graham, what do you think?
Yeah, so Atleti, they still play with 2 strikers, whether it's Sorloth or Alvarez or Sorloth and Griezmann. Ademola Lookman as well can play that role, joined in January, so they've got a few options to do that. Inter Milan as well with Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram. I think when you look at how a lot of these teams set up, it tends to be with width and support from the fullbacks or the wingbacks, right? That seems to be one of the common denominators between these teams. Inter is maybe the best example of this with DeMarco and Dumfries on either side. And I think that's a big part of why we don't see it much, even if it is, I agree with Joe, like the tactical cycle is coming back round again. I think part of the reason that it's still difficult in 2026 is not only do you need to find two centre forwards in a market where finding just one centre forward is hard enough, but wing backs in that system I think is a really specialist role and hard to find as well. And we've seen teams, cough cough, Manchester United under Ruben Amorim, not so much go with the two striker thing, but try to find those wide players and fail to find those players. So they're quite rare at the elite level, and until the pool of those players, both for centre forwards and for wide players who can make sure the balance is there and make sure that it's not too narrow and the spread is still decent enough, until that pool gets deeper, then I still think we're going to see teams kind of shy away from using an approach like that. Having said that, Liverpool, going back to the question from what was it, Crimson Jayhawk, love that name. Liverpool seem to have a lot of those things, right? Isak and Ikiteke, a whole bunch of central midfielders to choose from, including Wirtz, who can roam, and then fullbacks who are maybe better suited to being wingbacks in the case of Jeremy Frimpong and Milos Kerkez. The thing that they don't have is three good centre-backs, and they also have to fit in Mohamed Salah. But maybe they won't have to do that after the summer. So that's one that I would highlight as a team that might be next to join this trend.
Indeed. Taylor, anything to add here, sir?
Crimson Jayhawk was my favorite DC Comics superhero. Do we mention Inter Milan? Sorry, I was looking up something about Catenaccio as Graham was talking. Graham, did you mention them?
Yes, I did, yes.
Okay, cool.
With
Yeah, because they were the
Martinez
first one that came to mind, and pretty much the only one that came to mind. Ryan, to your point, like with football being cyclical, and Joe went into it really well, to my understanding, 4-4-2 is really popular, and Catenaccio is like a response to that, basically, and so you have the back three to deal with the front two, and that works really effectively. So then you have to find a way to deal with the Catenaccio system, and that's where you do get experimentation, starting with like Cruyff and his Barca teams and his Ajax teams and the like, of like false nine, or let's like crowd the middle, as Joe talked about, or let's try this, or let's try, and you get more experimentation from that. And so then in response to that, maybe we do have the 4-4-2 coming back more often. But there are the limitations that Graham has already talked about and the price that Graham has already talked about. So I think that is a big reason why, combined with if you have two guys standing up top while everyone else is pressing, it just doesn't really work so well. And if you have three guys standing around, then you're PSG, and it really doesn't work. So I think that is the gist of it, well covered by my colleagues.
Indeed. Crimson Jayhawk, I think, was DC, by the way, Taylor.
That's what I said.
Sorry,
DC
Crimson Jayhawk was Marvel, I think, Taylor.
Yeah, there it is.
I think you're an unreliable narrator at this
Whatever
point.
makes the joke work, Taylor. That's what it was. Very good. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Graham's rubbing his hands together with glee because we're talking World Cup kits and more. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our listener questions. Robert Cordova has been in touch with this one. How influential was the late Rocco Commisso for American soccer? Taylor Rocco Commisso died in January, age 76 years old, American-Italian billionaire, owner of Mediacom, and was the owner of the Cosmos, one of their recent iterations, and of course also Fiorentina. There's my short bio. Have at it.
So I missed that he had passed away, so this was news to me, and I want to be respectful of those who are no longer here when discussing them. I think the best way I can answer it is to say that I think in the U.S., I think he is more notorious than influential, and that may end up being the case for Fiorentina as well. Because there are moments when it seems like he is a positive figure for American soccer. I think Columbia Soccer, the university, or Columbia University. I think he does a lot with them in funding soccer and supporting soccer there. There's a moment when the Cosmos feel like they are a genuine challenger, and the NASL are going to be genuine challengers to Major League Soccer, or have intentions of either challenging or merging or the like. And I think he at one moment seemed like he could be this kind of like polarizing revolutionary who is maybe going to force conversations that people didn't want to have, or difficult conversations. But then, as we see in the most recent U.S. soccer lawsuit that gets settled, the antitrust lawsuit, it comes out that he's using a lot of like puppet arguments and attacks on soccer figures in this country very, very aggressively. Lots of comparisons between Don Garber and Harvey Weinstein, and saying that like what Harvey Weinstein did to young actresses, Don Garber is doing to American soccer in less kind terms than I've just put it. I think under testimony he had to admit that he was like behind the accounts that were doing that, and it just feels like he became more of an angry vocal figure for American soccer. That's my interpretation. For Fiorentina, it's a really mixed bag, because it seems like initially he is very appreciated because he comes in with money. He does like go about stabilizing the club a bit, trying to improve infrastructure. But then I think like after they have a bunch of near misses where they almost win silverware in Europe and do seem like they're on the right trajectory, things don't really go the way it looked like they were going to. The stadium deal doesn't really come to fruition. You can blame Italian bureaucracy for that, and I think some do. You can blame Commisso for that, and I think some do. But ultimately, I think this past season, supporters are releasing statements calling him the ghost owner. They're criticizing his lack of involvement. His health may have been a factor there as to why he wasn't so readily flying to Italy so often. But it seems like he went from being a figure that was at the very least appreciated by Fiorentina supporters to one that I think they put a lot of blame on for their present predicament, which is ongoing. So I think in the end, he is going to be remembered as more notorious than influential.
I think coming at it from a Fiorentina perspective, he's quite tied to Joe Barone, who was the CEO of Fiorentina as well, also a fellow Italian-American who passed away. He had a heart attack, I think it was a day before a game a couple of seasons ago, 2024 I think it was. So he was Barone was kind of credited with doing a lot of good things at Fiorentina, I suppose, and in association with Commisso in some ways. And it's probably not a coincidence that with Barone gone and maybe now Commisso gone, things aren't as well at Fiorentina as well. Maybe Barone had a bit more influence than Commisso did in that respect. But yeah, I think he also worked with him at the Cosmos, Barone. Anyway, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Taylor hit the nail on the head. Rocco Commisso doesn't sound like maybe somebody that I would have wanted to hang out with, to be totally honest. And as far as, I didn't do any of the Fiorentina research because Robert was asking about American soccer. Not that I think it wasn't interesting what you guys said, but I don't think he'll leave a lasting legacy. I mean, I think Commisso probably was someone that people who don't like MLS and don't agree with the model, which there are reasons to have those frustrations, someone that they probably identified with and appreciated that he kind of kept the NASL viable. This was the reborn NASL, not even the first one, viable for a few more seasons. But as far as legacy or influential in the American game, not very, I guess is my answer. I'll admit, like, I'm not an expert on the NASL. I'm not an expert on Commisso. I'm not an expert on the Cosmos or any of those things. So my apologies if I'm missing things that are big and major, and there's an entire possibility that I am. But it felt to me like he kept a dying project alive, and maybe that project was worth keeping alive. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But lower division soccer in the U.S. continues to be sort of an ugly mess, really. And Commisso didn't change that, which maybe it's more than one person can change, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and obviously I have held a candle for the Cosmos for a long time, having kind of kept track of that story over the years. I think a lot of Cosmos associated people initially were thankful that Rocco Commisso came in and kept that brand, as I guess it was for a long time, alive, but then were frustrated that after a while he didn't really do anything with it. And I accept it was difficult to keep them afloat and do anything with the Cosmos when the old NASL was collapsing around the club. But I don't know whether he'll be thought of in that regard as someone who did a lot to kind of boost the New York Cosmos, as certainly as a soccer team. I think maybe the generous reading of him looking at his influence in Italian soccer is he was part of that first wave of American business people who got involved with Serie A, along with like the Friedkins. So Dan Friedkin takes over Roma a year after Rocco Commisso buys Fiorentina. And so I think if you look at the American growth and interest in Serie A, I think that can be traced back to that wave that Commisso was very much a part of. Whether he's to blame for, I mean, they did build a state-of-the-art new training facility that I think Fiorentina have named after him. So that might be a mark of some appreciation, I guess, from Fiorentina.
It was called Viola Park, right, beforehand?
The unofficial name is Viola Park, but I think in terms of the official name, I'm sure I read this. Maybe I'm incorrect about this, but yeah, maybe that suggests there is some sort of warmth towards Commisso. And from what I read, and I remember the discussion between the CBS crew, it would have been like Matteo Bonetti and Mike Grella back when Commisso passed, like what was that, a couple of months ago, and they were saying like they very much put the stadium issue, the blame of the stadium issue on like local bureaucracy, and Commisso had kind of tried everything to get that stadium built, as sort of proven by the fact he did build a training ground, so there was intention to spend money on the infrastructure. But yeah, I don't know whether he left Fiorentina. Macro picture, I don't know if he left them in the best state. Although it does look like they're going to stay up now, which was a concern for the first half of the season when they were bottom of the Serie A table.
Yeah. And it's not a unique situation, Fiorentina struggling to get a stadium built because of local bureaucracy. That is very much a nationwide
for sure
issue teams as well.
To Joe's point, though, when it comes to American soccer, this is probably wrong, or rightly or wrongly. I will say, I think I equate him with when it felt like NASL. I don't know if he is the Cosmos guy who's doing the "We Are Back" marketing approach, or if that's the next iteration of the Cosmos after that, because there have been 4 or 5 at this point. But I think it felt for a moment like he could be that voice, or he could be a central figure in challenging Major League Soccer. He was the one who, if you had frustrations with the closed system and the way the league operated, you could sort of look to him and as being a figure that was kind of in opposition. And then I think the way things kind of fall apart and the way he approached engaging with figures from U.S. soccer, I think he ends up sort of being one that you kind of want to distance yourself from if you were of that mindset. I think he makes it look like less of a serious organization in the end. That is my general understanding of things, but I think that's why it's hard for me to kind of understand what his legacy will be if there is one.
Robert Cordova, thank you very much for your question. One final one for this episode from Brian C. If the World Cup were decided purely on who brought the best kits, who would have won the last few tournaments? For this, assumed qualification into the tournament is still the same as decided by the games played. Now, Graham, we come to you as our expert kit authority. I put it to you, I don't know whether this they don't necessarily appear at every World Cup, but the Netherlands, I think, are undefeated because they have an orange kit. It's the coolest colour for soccer shirts. It's one of the rarest. They always pull it off. Netherlands is my vote.
So I think in terms of the colourway, it's absolutely up there. I think Nike's execution over the last few World Cups has been off a little bit.
Mike's the guy who runs Nike.
Okay.
Mike, did I say Mike, did I? I meant Nike.
Who? What?
Oh, is this a Nike thing?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
there
We're
we
making
go.
fun of
what
the way
it's
you
called
talk.
versus
Sure.
what you people insist on calling
I knew
it. Yes.
one way or another I was getting made fun of. I just couldn't quite figure out which way. The last World Cup, the 22 World Cup, it was a little bit light. I wanted it to be much more vibrant, and Nike seemed to have, or Nike, whatever, seemed to have have done that. So they're not my answer for the last couple of World Cups. I don't know if what I'm going to say is going to get me cancelled on this show, but for 2022, Mexico is my answer.
Oh, yeah.
They're the World Cup winners.
Great pick.
It's frustrating that their other ones aren't as good as 2022 because I wanted them to be the answer.
Yeah, they had the 2 best kits in Qatar, I think, closely followed by Japan, who consistently get excellent kits. So that's my final for 2022. 2018, honestly, was a little bit of a nadir for kit design in general because that was the peak of the template era. I think Nigeria's home kit was the real headline grabber for this tournament. That was the one that was sold out, you remember, at Nighttown in London or whatever. But I think for both home and away kits, Colombia might have won this World Cup. That was top of my list. And then 2014, I'll give you another one. Also not a great World Cup for kits either. Looking back at 2014, you think they were good in 2014, Taylor?
I have the most entries for 2014, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Collars, baby, collars.
So I had Germany and Argentina as decent sets, but I didn't feel great about either of those, to be honest.
If you only watched one game, the final, yeah.
Actually, I didn't even realise that was the final, so I guess there's correlation there. What did you have, Taylor?
For 2014, Algeria, Argentina, Australia, Cameroon, Croatia, France, Germany, Greece, and Ivory Coast.
Could you say them quicker?
Greece is very straightforward, but I like the straightforward. Australia are always close in 2022 and 2018. 2014 is when I think they had it the best. That is the one I enjoy the most out of that tournament. I'm also realizing, I think because there are so few teams in club football that are green, any kit that is predominantly green or has green accents is going to stand out, or I just like the color green. But I had Saudi Arabia for 2022 for reasons along those lines, Nigeria in 2018, Algeria in 2014 for the green accents, Ivory Coast as well. My answer, I think, in the end is slightly boring. I think Croatia had a weak entry in 2022. Otherwise, they would normally be on my list because checkerboard vaults them up the standings quite a bit. But I think it's France. I really like what France tend to do. 2014 is probably my favorite single combination of any country, but France is key amongst them. It's like the dark blue, and then I think that's the white with the blue horizontal stripes. Either way, I think France do really, maybe not interesting, but very like simple but well done kits is what I would say for France.
I think France consistently have excellent kits. My one complaint is, I guess, because of my formative years being the late 90s and then winning the France 98 World Cup, their home blue has changed more recently to a darker blue, which I don't consider like quintessentially French. But yes, even still, I think the designs of their kits are excellent. Have you seen what their away kit for this World Cup is going to be? It's going to be a Statue of Liberty. They haven't released it yet, but the leaks have been pretty consistent. It's going to be a Statue of Liberty tribute, like a very sort of like light green, I guess, like the color of the Statue of Liberty.
They're speaking my language.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Because they gave it to us in 200. I keep forgetting that it's the 250th anniversary coinciding with the World Cup. That's a good choice by France.
Is that green not too close to blue? Or is it quite different?
Well, it's quite the pictures I've seen. It's like quite light. It's quite a light green. So it's, if you've got a dark blue kit, it's quite different.
Very nice. I think the France vote is very good as well. They always consistently excel with the clothing. Joe, any thoughts?
My first thought is no disrespect to that great Nigeria kit from 2018 because it is a very good kit. It's not as good as I remembered. I don't know if we've just had so many other amazing kits come out since then, or
2018 was bad.
We were just starved, man. We really were. Yeah. But my 2018 noms, I didn't do 2014. Nigeria still made the list. It's a good kit. It's a very, very good kit. Germany made my list for 2018. They've got the white one with the black like angular stripes and then a cool green textured pattern on the other one. And then Japan from 2018. And then I have both Germany and Japan back again for 2022. Germany 22 didn't get a shout from Graham, which I'm a bit surprised about. I love the vertical white on the outside, black down the middle of their, I assume that's their home shirt, although that doesn't matter in the World Cup. And their red and black textured one for the other one I think is really, really good. The other one for 22, no one said Argentina yet, correct? Just to be very sure about that.
No, Graham did.
Graham said Argentina for 22.
2014.
No, I said for 2014.
Yeah, 22. So I'll go to
I had them, Joe. I'm right there with you, buddy.
Good. It's maybe not top tier, but it's the classic for the primary shirt, and it's, you know, you can sort of picture Messi in the white and blue vertical stripes. But the other one is this cool, could I say ombre? Maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. Am I 100% sure what that word means? No, I'm not. This is Graham's territory.
Like that ombre?
It's a gradient. It starts as a deeper purple, and then it goes into a lighter purple at the bottom of the shirt. Might be a blue at the top. I don't know. Looks cool. They're in the conversation.
That's a new word. That's fun.
It's a real word. I just am not 100% sure
Can you
what
spell
it
it?
means. Okay, what is this? A spelling bee?
I don't know this word. I want to
Sounds
know.
fun.
Ombre.
Understand the noise you made, Joe.
It's a French word. It refers to a French term meaning shaded, describing a color effect that graduates from light to dark. Boom. Nailed it.
Gradient.
22 was a good World Cup for
blowing my
kits,
mind.
with the exception of
praise.
the US and the Puma teams. There's some.
Wait,
good ones
which
in
one
there.
was?
22. The last one.
Wait, oh, sorry. I think I was still trying to figure, I was still reeling from the ombre thing. You said it was bad for Puma, right? Because if you think it's good for Puma.
No, I said it was a good World Cup with the exception of the US and the Puma teams.
Okay.
Is what I said.
Because if you thought Puma were good, we were going to fight, Graham.
No,
like,
they
see,
were
I might
horrific.
come through the monitor at you. Because that is the most definitive, do you like our weird name tag template that we have for every
terrible.
single shirt? It's bad, but you all have it now. Yeah, that was not good. I had Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, France for 2022.
Can I say something controversial about Argentina?
Mm-hmm.
I think all their shirts kind of just look the same.
It's the second. It's Joe made the point. It's the second kit.
Yeah.
As long as you do the primary kit well,
Correct.
and then the second kit is really interesting,
Then they're
you're
top
at a
tier,
solid
I
one.
think.
Okay.
It is the problem for England, honestly, is that you all just do the same thing every single time.
And it's just white and it's boring.
Exactly. Like, you all could spice it up, but you're England, and you have your monocles and your traditions and your tea and crumpets or whatever else it is. I don't know. Like, I wish there could be more variety to what England does, but there can't be because you all invented the sport, and so it must be Puritan.
It's because anytime they try and do something different, like they did for the,
Oh, yeah.
was it the Euros or the World Cup, and they had an England, the St George's flag in, what was it, purple on the back, and everyone lost, the right wing press lost their absolute mind, because you can't change the colour of the flag, despite the fact they've done it multiple times over the years before that one, so...
Have they got, like, why not go lobster back? Why not, like, everybody knows British soldiers from, like, the colonial era as being the, like, you know, the red uniform. You're not going to get away from the idea of England being a colonial empire. Just lean into it, man. I want, like, not just a red shirt. I want, like, a colonial, and for the World Cup in 2026, America's 250th birthday. Come on.
Well, I mean, that is England's most iconic look, is the full red kit, right? That they won it in
With the tricolor hat,
66.
though, is what I want.
So,
Or the tricolor
sure,
hat,
let's
rather.
add that. I'm sure Nike they'll be up for making that.
I suppose England have a similar problem to I suppose the US have diverted from the white shirt, but generally, if you're playing just a white shirt, you're only really messing with the trim color, and that's about it, right?
France does it well. Like, I think it's the 2018 one where they have the white shirt that is, like, speckled.
Pinstriped?
No, it's not pinstripe. It's got like a little bit of texture to it that gives it more definition than just like, it's a white shirt with blue trim.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a blue shirt with white trim. Fascinating.
The French and their ombre. Incredible.
And oeuvre.
Graham, the 2014 shout out for Germany, I will back that as well. I love that they had was it where they had the three colours in sort of a V at the very top of the shirt? They've done that sort of the three colour of the flag on the shirt, I think, in sort of the early 90s, and they sort of brought that back. And I just think that's one of my favourite Germany shirts as well, because they're another one who could just do a white shirt with a bit of black trim and call it a day, and they have done that recently. So to have that on there, love that.
They always have like kind of geometric stuff, don't they? Germany going on in their shirt, which is England needs a little bit of that. But of course, this World Cup will be their last Adidas shirt before they go to Nike or Mike or Nike or whatever we're calling, which seems
right?
sacrilege that Germany's not going to be Adidas, but it's going to happen.
Wow.
Would Jamaica be in this conversation if they qualified
Yes.
more often? Okay. Because
I
they can be a little basic sometimes. Again, the green. I didn't know the green was so important to me, but they get some crazy good kits in there occasionally. I think better than a lot of other teams go for.
So since they switched to Adidas, like what would that be, 3 years ago, they're getting absolute top tier stuff from Adidas. So I have a couple of, I think I've got a zippy and a shirt. They get good stuff.
They always have the best bobsled outfits as well.
They do indeed, yeah.
It's,
Famously.
cool. It's a cool colourway. The black, the green, and yellow. It's very cool. It works. Very good. Brian C., thank you so much for your listener question. Thank you to everybody who has submitted one. If you would like to do so, you can go to the following URL, totalsoccershow.com/questions, or you can take our preferred route and join our Patreon, patreon.com/totalsoccershow. Come hang out with us in our Discord. Ask us a question. We love you if you do so. Thank you to everybody who supports us. That's it for this week. We'll be back with the weekend review on Monday. But for now, the Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Ryan Bailey, the Nike of this show.
A Nike in shining armour, if you will.
You should do that. England should do that. That's another historical one.
Chainmail
Let's get you
kit.
some armor.
Yeah.
Chainmail
like
kits,
it.
yeah.
We'll work on it. Graham Rutherford, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey. You just know if you offered that to Harry Kane, he is taking the chainmail kit. That feels on brand for him.
Yeah. Is there anything that can slow him down even more?
He would look okay in the barrister wig. Harry Kane is the one who could pull that off, I think, of the entire England squad. Like, he wouldn't look...
Oh, now
not
we're
at
putting
all.
him in a barrister wig and
Why not,
chainmail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get you a guy who could do both.
We'll put it on the maybe pile. I like it. Joe Lowry, thank you.
Merry Christmas to all and to all a good night.
Thank you very much, listener, for joining us on this one. We'll be back on the feed very shortly, but for now, bye.